Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into a vehicle that's, well, it's stirred up a lot of opinions over the years, the Porsche Cayenne.
Oh yeah, that one always gets people talking.
Exactly. I mean, some folks see it as like this ultimate expression of Porsche's engineering prowess.
While others think it's, straying a bit too far from the brand's roots.
Right. And that's exactly what we're going to dig into today. We've got articles, specs, even some really interesting YouTube videos we're going to unpack.
Should be fun.
Absolutely. So let's start with the basics. What exactly were the circumstances that led to the Cayenne's creation in the first place?
Well, it's kind of fascinating, actually. You got to go back to 1998. Ferry Porsche, the company's founder, he passed away that year. And it kind of created like this moment of reflection for Porsche.
Ah, like a turning point.
Yeah, exactly. They started to think about, new directions for the company, new markets they could explore. And that's where the idea for the Cayenne really started to take shape.
So they were looking to broaden their horizons a bit, step outside their comfort zone.
Exactly. And they didn't do it alone. They actually partnered up with Volkswagen.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I mean, Porsche always seemed like such an independent, almost fiercely independent brand.
Right. So it was a pretty big deal at the time. This collaboration resulted in shared platforms between the Cayenne and the Volkswagen Touareg.
So under the skin, they're kind of like cousins.
You could say that, yeah.
But there was that made in Germany twist, right? I mean, the Cayenne is still very much seen as a German-engineered vehicle.
Exactly. Even though they were developed together, production was split. So the Touareg, it was built in Slovakia. But the Cayenne, at least initially, its final assembly was done in Leipzig, Germany.
Ah, okay. So German engineering, global collaboration, the Cayenne enters the world. But the reception, well, it wasn't all champagne and roses, was it? It kind of landed in this like weird in-between space. Was it a family car? Was it a serious off-roader? Was it a Porsche trying to be an SUV?
Oh yeah, early reviews were definitely mixed. Some people, they saw it as a betrayal of Porsche's legacy, like it was moving away from that pure sports car focus.
And I bet some of the purists were up in arms.
You bet. But if you look at the performance specs, even the first generation, the Cayenne was no slouch. I mean, we're talking 0 to 60 times that rivaled dedicated sports cars. Top speeds that would make you think twice about calling it just an SUV.
So it's like Porsche took this gamble and then was like, hold my beer, we're going to prove you wrong. And they didn't just talk the talk, they walked the walk. That whole Trans-Siberia rally thing comes to mind. Thousands of miles across brutal terrain, and the Cayenne just ate it up.
That's right. And that wasn't just a marketing gimmick either. Porsche sent engineers, racing drivers, to actually compete. And then they used what they learned to improve the Cayenne. It led to the development of that, the Cayenne S Trans-Siberia edition.
Basically a rally car you could take to the grocery store. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
So they really put their money where their mouth was. It wasn't just about bragging rights. They genuinely wanted to push this thing to its limits and show the world what it could do.
Absolutely. And you can see that reflected in how people actually use their Cayennes. I mean, we found this story about a couple from South Africa. They drove their Cayenne across Europe, shipped it down to South Africa, and then proceeded to explore their home continent.
Wow. We're talking serious off-road adventures, a Cayenne going on safari.
Exactly. It really is a testament to the vehicle's versatility. And it's not just these hardcore adventurers either. Even on YouTube, there's this guy, Fuel Files. He's totally obsessed with turning his Cayenne into an off-road beast.
Fuel Files, yeah. He's got that awesome energy, right? All those lift kits, those massive all-terrain tires. He goes all out.
Definitely. And you remember that hilarious moment when he encountered that armored International CV?
Oh.
Put the size of the Cayenne into perspective?
Oh, yeah. It looked tiny next to that thing. Okay, so we've established people are taking this thing off-road, but how does it actually handle those conditions? Let's talk about the tech.
All right, time to get a little geeky.
Yeah.
One of the key features, especially in those early generations, was the air suspension system.
Oh, okay.
So basically, picture this, the Cayenne. It can actually raise or lower itself depending on what you need.
Right.
Like on the highway, it sits low for better aerodynamics and handling. But when you hit those rough trails, you can lift it up for that extra clearance.
Interesting. So it's adaptable.
Very.
Huh.
And it wasn't just about ride height. I mean, this system was really designed for serious off-roading.
And they even offered that advanced off-road equipment package, didn't they? What was in that? A winch, a snorkel?
They had those goodies, yeah, like a rear differential lock and skid plates. But it also had disconnectable anti-roll bars. Imagine you're tackling some tough terrain, You need your wheels to move more independently for better grip.
Ah, okay. So that's where this package comes in.
You got it?
Wow, so they really thought of everything. But you mentioned that later models actually lost some of that off-road tech.
You're right. Later models, they actually got rid of the low-range transfer case.
Oh, okay.
Think of it like an extra set of gears, specifically for extreme off-roading. It gave you that, more torque at low speeds to really crawl over obstacles.
Gotcha.
Removing it, well, it kind of hinted that maybe Porsche was starting to shift the Cayenne's focus a bit more towards on-road performance.
So maybe they realized most Cayenne owners weren't actually tackling the Rubicon Trail every weekend.
That's probably a safe bet.
But they weren't abandoning performance altogether, were they?
No way. They introduced stuff like Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control, PDCC.
PDCC?
It uses active anti-roll bars, so it basically keeps the Cayenne super flat and stable in corners. Makes it handle like a much smaller, sportier car.
Interesting. So they take away some of the hardcore off-road gear, but replace it with technology that makes it handle like a dream on pavement.
Exactly.
Sounds like a good trade-off to me.
And speaking of impressive feats, remember that Guinness World Record we stumbled across?
The one where?
A Cayenne towing an Airbus A380.
Wait, what? An airplane? Seriously, they just decided to try that out of the blue.
Apparently.
Yeah.
They used a Cayenne S diesel for that record. It was all about showing off that incredible torque those engines could produce. Talk about a statement.
That's insane. All right, so we've got this performance SUV. It can tow airplanes, conquer rallies, carve corners like a sports car. What about the Porsche purists? Did they ever come around to this unconventional creation?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
There was definitely some backlash initially. Folks felt like Porsche was straying from its roots.
Yeah.
But commercially, the Cayenne was a massive hit. It brought in a whole new wave of customers. And you could even argue it saved the company.
It's funny how the same car, some considered a betrayal, actually ended up securing Porsche's future. What a twist. But it wasn't just a one-hit wonder. The Cayenne kept evolving, right?
Oh, absolutely. We got to talk about the E1, E2, and E3 generations, how each one built on the success of its predecessor.
Okay, so that's where we're going to pick things up in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, so we've covered that wild ride, from conception to cult classic, the Cayenne, the gamble, the performance, those mixed reactions. But now let's zoom out a bit. Let's talk about legacy. What did its success really mean for Porsche? And how did it change how we see SUVs as a whole?
Yeah. It's like the Cayenne made a splash so big the whole industry felt the ripples. Like, think about it. Before the Cayenne, Porsche, it was all about those sleek, two-door sports cars. A very specific image, right?
Totally. And that Cayenne, it flipped that on its head, brought in a whole new crowd. People who loved Porsche, but needed something a little more practical for everyday life, families, gear, And this surprisingly led to massive success for Porsche.
Yeah, they cracked the code. Suddenly, Porsche wasn't just this niche, sports car maker anymore. They had this SUV bringing in serious cash, and which, if I'm remembering correctly, gave them the freedom to invest in even cooler projects.
You got it. The Cayenne's success, it let them put more resources into developing things like that 918 Spider, the 919 hybrid race car, even that all-electric Taycan. They broadened their customer base, got the financial stability to chase those bigger dreams.
So it wasn't just a cash cow. It was like this launch pad for Porsche's future. But it also did something else pretty remarkable. It changed how people thought about SUVs as a whole. Before the Cayenne, SUVs were these, rugged utilitarian vehicles, not exactly known for their handling or speed.
Right. And the Cayenne was like, hold on, an SUV can be both practical and a thrill to drive.
Yeah.
He showed everyone that an SUV could, take on winding roads confidently, even hold its own on a racetrack.
Remember that video we watched, the one with the modified Cayenne going off-road? The host kept saying, this thing handles like a sports car on these trails. It was insane.
Yeah, that was their goal all along. To build an SUV that didn't compromise on the driving experience.
Right.
Basically, they took their sports car DNA and injected it into the SUV segment.
Yeah.
And it paid off big time.
For sure. But let's be real. There's always another side to the story, right? The Cayenne's success, it also, arguably paved the way for what some people call the SUV-fication of the car world.
100%. That's a key point.
Yeah.
Once a Cayenne proved that performance and practicality, they could coexist in an SUV, other luxury brands were like, we got to get in on this.
BMW, Mercedes-Benz, even Lamborghini, everyone wanted a piece of that pie.
Yep.
And now SUVs are everywhere. It seems like they're the default for families, even if they don't need all that extra space or off-road capability.
Right, and it does raise some valid concerns about things like, fuel efficiency, the environmental impact. SUVs, just by their design, tend to be heavier, less aerodynamic than your typical sedan or hatchback.
Yeah, so it's kind of double-edged sword. On one hand, you have the Cayenne, this incredible feat of engineering. It really shows how Porsche is dedicated to performance, to pushing boundaries. But on the other, its success contributed to a trend that might not be so great for the environment.
That's the complex reality of the Cayenne's legacy, isn't it? It's a story of, triumph, innovation, and kind of challenging the status quo. But it also brings up some big questions about sustainability, what direction the car industry should be heading in.
It's a question Porsche themselves are grappling with, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they've been putting a lot into hybrid and electric technology, like the Cayenne e-hybrid, that all-electric Macan.
Going to be interesting to see how they balance their legacy of high performance with this growing need for eco-friendly solutions. It's a balancing act a lot of car companies are facing these days.
For sure. Okay, but let's bring it back to the Cayenne specifically for a sec. Even with all its success, there have been some pretty vocal critics. We've seen comments about it being too bulky, too flashy, not a true Porsche. What do you make of that?
I think some of those criticisms come from a place of, nostalgia, this longing for the days when Porsche was all about those lightweight, nimble sports cars.
Yeah.
But the world changes,
Yeah.
and for brands to survive, they have to adapt,
But
right?
then the Cayenne wasn't just about survival, it was about thriving. It brought in new fans, expanded their market, made Porsche stronger overall. Besides, who says a bigger car can't be fun to drive?
Exactly. We saw in those videos, the Cayenne, despite its size, it can be so agile and responsive. Those powerful engines, they deliver exhilarating acceleration. And it can handle corners like it's, on rails. It might not be a 911, but it's still a Porsche, through and through.
Totally. It might not fit that classic mold, but it embodies that Porsche spirit, that commitment to performance, to pushing limits.
It's a Porsche that can tow an airplane, a family car that can dominate a rally stage, a luxury SUV that can handle like a sports car. Embraces contradictions. That's what makes it so cool. But there's one more piece of the Cayenne's legacy we got to explore, its impact on the aftermarket scene. Remember that YouTuber practically drooling over those off-road mods?
Oh yeah, the massive tires, that rugged front bumper. It's like the Cayenne became this blank canvas for people to, express their own style, their sense of adventure.
100%. The Cayenne is super popular with off-road enthusiasts and tuners. We've seen some wild builds.
Yeah.
From like rock-crawling beasts to luxurious overlanding rigs. Like, people saw this hidden potential, this ability to go way beyond the factory specs and create something unique.
It speaks to that solid engineering, the Cayenne's versatility. It's not just a car, it's a platform for personalization, a way for people to express their individuality and their passion for pushing those boundaries.
And that adds to the Cayenne's appeal, contributes to its staying power. So we've seen that it's a commercial success, a performance icon, a cultural phenomenon, a platform for customization. The Cayenne has defied expectations, reshaped the automotive landscape. But after all this exploring, there's this one question that's still kind of lingering.
The big one. What do you think? After diving into the Cayenne's history, its capabilities, its evolution, its impact, what's your verdict? Is it a true Porsche, worthy of that badge, like a legitimate part of that legendary lineage? Or is it, a betrayal of everything Porsche stood for, a compromise just for profits?
It's tough to say. There's no easy answer. I mean, the Cayenne's legacy, it's complicated, right?
Yeah.
Lots of layers. And ultimately, it's up to each person to decide where they stand. It's definitely a vehicle that's, sparked debate, challenged how we see things, and it's made its mark, that's for sure.
And that's what makes it so interesting to dig into, right? The Cayenne might not be for everyone, but after spending some time with it, with the research, I bet you're seeing it a little differently. It's more than just an SUV. It's a statement. This bold move by Porsche. And it paid off, in ways I don't think anyone could have predicted.
Yeah. It's like that's the magic of going deep, isn't it? You start to appreciate the nuances, the little things, the stories behind the headlines. Yeah, the Cayenne might not be everyone's cup of tea, but its impact, its significance in car history, undeniable.
Absolutely. And here's a little something to ponder. A thought that, wasn't directly in our sources, Porsche's motto, driven by dreams. Does the Cayenne fit that?
No.
Was it someone's dream to create this unconventional Porsche? Or was it more of a calculated business decision?
Oh, that's a good one to leave our listeners with.
Yeah.
It makes you think about what really drives innovation. Was it purely reacting to the market, or was there genuine passion there, a desire to to build something truly different?
Maybe it was a little bit of both. And that's kind of the beauty of the Cayenne. It blurs those lines, challenges what we think we know. I mean, it's a Porsche that can tow an airplane, a family car that can crush a rally stage, a luxury SUV that handles like a sports car.
It embraces those contradictions,
Hmm.
and that's what makes it so, I don't know, so captivating.
So if you're still curious, if the Porsche Cayenne still has you intrigued, well, there's a whole world out there waiting to be explored. Dig into those specific models, the different generations, the crazy aftermarket mods people do, the personal stories from people who actually own them.
You might be surprised at what you find. And who knows, maybe you'll even find yourself behind the wheel of a Cayenne someday, experiencing that unique blend of performance, practicality, and that Porsche pedigree all firsthand.
And that's it for our deep dive into the world of the Porsche Cayenne. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions. We'll catch you later.